Hi there, today we're going to be talking about the CAPM exam. Certified Associate in Project Management is what CAPM stands for. The CAPM is a great entry-level exam for project management associates, people who are project coordinators, project expediters, project assistants, or anyone on a project team that has experience that revolves around project management. Those are the ideal candidates for this particular certification. Now, this certification is also a great way for project managers who are further along in their career to start getting into the PMI mindset. So, by no means is this an exam only for people who are junior in project management, or people who are BAs, or people who are project coordinators. No. This exam is for anyone who wishes to begin to understand more about the PMBOK guide, about the PMI, and maybe people who are not that ready to go the full length for the PMP exam. That is who the CAPM exam is for. So you could give yourself a window of 2 years to get into the PMI mindset, get into the PMBOK guide, and then take the CAPM, and after you pass the CAPM, begin to ramp up and get ready for your PMP. Nothing wrong in that at all. I will also be sharing with you some of my experience from taking the CAPM exam. So let's talk about CAPM exam requirements. This is from the book Project Management Essentials. Project Management Essentials is a book that you can also get with the PMBOK Guide Audio Digest, which makes an invaluable way of preparing for the PMP or CAPM exams. So the educational experience or background that's needed is a secondary school diploma or high school diploma or the global equivalent of that. And in addition, you need to have 1,500 hours of project management experience. That is professional experience on a project team. The second option is you should have a secondary diploma, a high school diploma, and project management education, 23 contact hours. So you either got option 1 or you've got option 2. Those are the two options for the CAPM exam. Now the first step is to find out if you qualify. If you do qualify and you've got either option 1 requirements or option 2 requirements, the next step will be to read the CAPM handbook. Don't take the CAPM exam for granted. It's not the kind of exam that you can use head knowledge for. Many people think, oh, it's just one of those junior project management exams. That's so far from the truth. If you haven't studied the PMBOK guide and you go into the CAPM exam, it will absolutely floor you. People fail this exam. So, questions are 100% from the PMBOK guide for the CAPM, and that means you need to know the PMBOK guide in and out. All the chapters 1, 2, and 3 that PMPs typically fly through, you really need to know chapters 1, 2, and 3. They test you a lot more about those 3 chapters on the CAPM. I found question upon question upon question from chapters 1, 2, and 3. So absolutely study those. The next thing is understand that the nature of questions that you'll be asked are not really situational questions. They're very specific. So it even becomes more difficult to guess because you can't use logic. You absolutely should know every chapter code, all the inputs, tools and techniques, outputs, know them ice cold. Otherwise, you might find it rather tough on that exam. Now, after you've studied the handbook, the next logical thing to do is to find a 23 contact hour course, or if you're thinking of taking the PMP, which we normally encourage our students to, even if they're CAPMs, we encourage them to begin to think about the PMP exam. And for that reason, we currently offer a 35 contact hour course for CAPM. So even though it's a CAPM based course, you can still study far to get prepared for the PMP later on, so that you don't need to spend double the amount getting the educational requirements for the PMP. So you kind of kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. Alright, so when you get into your 35 contact hour course with Praizion Media, we take you through the whole PMBOK guide, we take you through what you need to know for the exam. We get you ready and get you bulletproof for the exam. We put you through mock exams, put you through very realistic quizzes to find out where exactly you are. We also sharpen the saw by going through a quiz at the end of each chapter. So it's very difficult for you to fool the system. If you don't know it, you will not be able to get a 70. And that's how our system works. Then after you go through the course, the next big thing is studying. How do you study? Because you can go for a course without studying. Studying is different. Studying takes you from all that you know from the random chapters, and it aggregates it, and you begin to glue all the pieces together, because there's lots of relationships between chapters in the PMBOK guide. If you haven't realized that, you probably haven't even started reading it, because there's so much that links from one chapter to the other. I'll give you some examples. You think about the different processes. They have outputs. Those outputs feed other processes. You think about the tools and techniques. Those tools and techniques are used in multiple places. For example, if you study the PMBOK guide, you'll see the trend in variance analysis where it's used. You see the trend in project document updates where those come from. You'll see the trend in project management plan updates where those come from, and so on and so forth. So as you study, you begin to glue all the pieces together. You get to a point where you are so saturated that you know you are ready to take the real thing. And the only way you can get there is by being determined, being dogged, being rugged. Take a look at this guy over here. It's like, when am I ever going to find time to study? When am I going to find study time? Well, you're not going to find study time. You begin to make excuses because you refuse to make the time. When you make the time, you'll stop making the excuses. So make the time to study. How do you make the time to study? You clear out time. You need to be rugged. You need to be dogged. Whether it's the PMP or any project management exam or any professional exam, the only way you get to the finish line is to make that time. So don't say, I don't have time. Make the time. If you're absolutely serious about it and your job depended on it, you'll get certified. Alright, so don't make excuses. You probably won't find much sympathy from people who've been through this process, because everyone who gets CAPM or PMP certified spent a reasonable amount of time sacrificing watching TV or going out, with friends, or going to that party or the club or whatever. The times when you're going to have to put those things on the back burner to focus on what is career critical. It's always good to have fun and have a laugh, but when it comes down to your career, you can't have a laugh without, setting your priorities. So set your priorities, and for a period of time, get into the zone. Be all over this stuff. I know people who have gotten jobs from being CAPMs. I know people who look at the CAPM as nothing but a waste of time and a piece of paper, and that's why they don't follow through. But if you follow through with it and look at it as something that you need to do to get yourself to the position of being acknowledged as a professional, right? Even though you are CAPM, you're still acknowledged as a professional. When you go to a job interview and they ask you, have you managed projects or have you been a project coordinator? You're like, yes. Okay, what's your approach? And you've got nothing to say because you're empty. You don't know the structure of project management, you don't know the detail. Being a CAPM will take you from being clueless about project management to a place where you can actually talk, you can speak, you can be intelligent among your peers, and even people who are far ahead of you in the organization in project management. But at least you're not going to be sitting down there like a dummy, not understanding the basics. And I know what I'm talking about because I've been there. After having degrees and having other certifications, when it came to project management, it was like, do you know about Prince 2? I'm like, I've never heard of that. Okay, what do you know about scheduling? Can you tell us about that? And you just start talking from the top of your head, and you sound so daft, really. And that's what happened in my case. I went for an interview, and they began to ask me questions about the project life cycle back in those days before I became a PMP, and I had absolutely no clue. But if I had done the CAPM, maybe I would have known a little bit more, and I would have been able to sound maybe a little bit more intelligent than guessing and answering off the top of my head, which is so silly. So, take it from me, the CAPM is a great way of getting your feet wet in project management. Getting your feet wet in the PMBOK guide, getting your feet wet. When I talk about project management, I'm talking about structured project management, because lots of people have been in project management, of course, but they don't have any structure. Everything is ad hoc, or they don't know the terms. So when I say get your feet wet, I'm talking about getting your feet wet in a process that works, getting your feet wet in a framework that you can speak to. That's what I'm talking about. So talking about the CAPM, if you really want to do well, you're going to have to study. You're going to have to study tools and techniques. You're going to have to use them to make sure you really get it into your system and know what they are. You're going to have to develop a schedule for your studying, as you can see here. Develop a schedule. You're going to have a strategy to accomplish your plan on schedule. Alright? You're going to have to quantify how much you've studied. Have I studied 10% of the syllabus, or 20 or 30? And it's very easy to do that because the CAPM is broken down by chapter, and it maps directly back to chapters in the PMBOK guide. So you've got chapters 1, 2, 3 all the way to 12. Okay? So it's very easy to assess how much you've studied. Have I studied 1 out of 12, 2 out of 12, 3 out of 12? The other big thing is get study materials that work. I'm talking about study materials that have helped people and that will minimize your study time. I'm talking about audio. Lots of people are great listeners. They don't even need to look at the book, they just listen and boom, they've got all the information. And those are the kind of people that need the Project Management Audio Digest. If you do not have a copy, strongly advise you go to Praizion.com over here, and from Praizion.com you just want to click on the PMBOK Guide Audio Digest right there. Click on that. That will take you straight to the page, and you can read a little bit about what it is, what it does for you. You can listen to a sample over there, but I'm telling you that this tool will get you razor sharp for the exam. We will really put you into a fast lane of accelerated studying and deep dives into the PMBOK guide. We've got flashcards, we've got audio, we've got a book that I just showed you, which is the book I'm teaching from right now, Project Management Essentials. This will get you ready for the exam. You see, it kind of bombards you from a 360 perspective, whether you are in the car or you're out of the car at work, or out of the car at home, or out of the car at Starbucks trying to get your coffee fix for the morning. Whatever you're doing, you are bombarded from a 360-degree perspective, in that you're always listening, you always got your flashcards with you, or you are listening, leisurely at home. So whatever you do, get a solution that will immerse you in the process of studying for the exam. When it comes down to the wire, going to about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week to the exam, You need to immerse yourself in this stuff, and the only way to do that is constant listening, constant studying. Those tools I showed you right over here, that has been the key to thousands of successes. People get these materials, they read, they study, and it just sticks. Because it's one thing to hear about the project management body of knowledge in a 23 contact hour class or 35 contact hour class, but the big question is, how much do you retain? You see, you would increase the percentage that you retain by daily listening. If only you listened daily, you'd be able to retain a lot more. As I often say, a chapter of the PMBOK guide a day, or a chapter of the Project Management Audio Digest a day, will keep the PMP blues away. A CD a day will keep those blues of, oh, I don't remember the PMBOK guide. It'll keep all that away. So you might want to consider audio learning from the Project Management Audio Digest. Strongly recommend that to you. Another thing I'm going to talk about is the way people learn. People learn differently. Some people learn by listening, some people learn by reading and studying, but there's some people who learn from patterns. They learn from patterns of how things are linked together. And for those people, we have a product called ITTO Science. And it's the ITTO Science book. I would strongly recommend, if you're having trouble with ITTOs, inputs, tools and techniques and outputs, go to praizion.com, grab a copy of ITTO Science. It's a rather unique book, very different from the typical way you study ITTOs. So I'm going to click on the link and open up the product and show you a few screenshots just to let you know what exactly is in the book. So here's an example here of one of the images in the book. Now, it's rather small, but you get the idea. This is an ITTO-centric view of every input, tool and technique and output. So it shows you the input, the tool and technique or output, and shows you where they are used, which is where they go. It also shows you where they come from. So, for example, organizational process assets updates comes from all of these processes, and you're able to visually see that. You're able to visually perceive the relationships of the inputs, of the outputs, and even for the tools and techniques, you're able to see for each tool and technique, each input, each output, you're able to see the relationships, where they go, processes they're used. For example, I talked about variance analysis. Variance analysis is a tool and technique of control costs, control scope, report performance, and control schedule. So this particular book shows you in a very different way the tools and techniques, the inputs and the outputs. It's a perfect book for people who are visual. And it was actually a student of ours who spurred that thought of ITTOs in a different way. You see, people learn differently. If you learn using materials that are visual, get visual materials such as ITTO Science, the book, or you might want the ITTO flashcards, which is another great way of studying. But you're studying details of the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs looking at flashcards. Now these are color-coded cards. You could put all the light colors together just to make sure that you know all the reds, all the yellows, all the blacks, all the greens. And at the end of the day, it really helps you focus on what you know and what you don't know among the key ITTOs. So you've heard me mention ITTOs quite a bit. Why am I talking about ITTOs again and again? The answer is, on the CAPM exam, you're not going to be spared being asked about ITTOs. You will get questions on ITTOs. And that's why study the PMBOK guide, as you can see over here, is very important. You need to focus on those ITTOs. None of our materials is a replacement for the PMBOK guide. You still need to study the PMBOK guide. Regardless how good the other books are, regardless how good materials are, strongly advise you read the PMBOK guide, read the glossary, read every single bit of it. Of course, you need to reaffirm your understanding by taking lots of mock exams and quizzes and practicing. And ITTO Science, the book, is a really great one. In fact, I used ITTO Science before my CAPM exam. How did I use it? I basically gave the book to a friend to quiz me on the details in that book. So I could be asked, for example, variance analysis is a tool and technique of mention all the processes, and the answers are there, but I couldn't see them. But my friend with the book could, and as I went through that process, I began to identify several things I thought I knew and things I needed to close gaps on. Okay? So the summary of all I've been saying to you today is, after you're done with your 23 or 35 contact hour course, listen to a CD a day, listen to audio materials on your commute, stay in the zone, read the PMBOK guide, it's non-negotiable, set targets for each PMBOK guide chapter, prioritize, fix an exam date. That's a big one. You absolutely need to do that, otherwise you're going to keep on pushing it out. Exert yourself as appropriate. Use summary sheets from your studying. Use flashcards to maximize your drive time. These are audio flashcards. Use them to maximize time in the car or relaxation time. Okay? And as far as the CAPM exam is concerned, you're not going to be tested on the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct like we are in the PMP exam. So that's it for today. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you now have a good idea of how to prepare for the CAPM exam. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to let me know. I will help you out. I will give you the advice you need. Now, if you're looking for more information, go to pmpdoctor.com. Take a look around. You'll find very valuable tools, valuable information, and things that could help you in your study. I wish you all the best. See you soon.